Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at upgrading the brand new starter deck that's going to be releasing alongside of BT08, Ancient Dragons. So Ancient Dragons, like all of the other starter decks before, follows the 2 deck rule, where you're going to want to purchase 2 copies of the deck so that way you can have a playset of all of the cards in said deck. And if you're looking to upgrade the deck just with those 2 starter decks, then you would probably want to end up with something like this in order to have a slightly more powerful and cohesive experience in terms of what the deck is trying to do and the gameplay it's trying to offer. But we could take this and go even further with some cards from BT08 to make a very fun and very powerful deck with. Now, when upgrading the deck to its full potential, you should end up with something like this. Granted, you are going to be needing more than just a couple of cards from BT08 to really make this deck shine. But this deck is going to be a very powerful deck that's trying to take advantage of the new DNA digivolution or Jagras mechanic to basically combine 2 stacks into a new Digimon to be extra aggressive with. And the new cards from the starter deck really help facilitate this strategy. Now, because Imperialdramon as a whole has a ton of different support and lots of different cards that you could think about playing with, it only adds to the flexibility on how you could customize the deck to make it your own and the different types of cards that you're going to be wanting to use, thanks to just how multicolor works in Digimon as of BT08. But for all intents and purposes, this is just a really solid core or shell for you to be working off of to start getting those creative juices flowing. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of DemiVeemon. So this is the BT03 version of DemiVeemon, and this card is really good for its interaction and synergy with the jamming mechanic and keyword. So what this card is doing more specifically is it has the inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn. If this Digimon has the jamming ability, then we get to draw 1 card, helping with the deck's overall consistency, and we do have multiple ways of having jamming and giving jamming in the deck to be able to utilize this ability as often as we possibly can. And then as far as the 5th Digitama of the deck goes, it could really be anything you want it to be. I would recommend using a blue Digitama just because we are running mostly a blue low end, but if you wanted to, depending on how you build the deck and what your ratios are, you could actually go with a green Digitama. But I just find that DemiVeemon from the All-Force Veemon starter deck is a really good Digitama to use just because it's a very easy way to help DP boost our Digimon. So it has the ability where during your turn, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, which we're part blue, and blue has lots of card draw, so that's not going to be a problem, then this Digimon will gain plus 1000 DP, ensuring it's going to have a slightly easier time attacking and being safe to attack with. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Veemon. So this is going to be the BT03 version of Veemon, and this card is one of the best cards to interact with the DemiV egg that has jamming support and synergy because, well, this Veemon has the jamming ability, so we could start swinging and feeling safe about our swings as early as level 3s. Just because the jamming ability itself states that the Digimon can't be deleted by battle against the opponent's security Digimon, so it's just a very easy card to start swinging with to try to help it use in combination with our DemiVeemon egg to gain lots of card draw early on. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Veemon. So this is the BT08 version of Veemon, and this card is going to act as one of the deck's dedicated diggers. So it has the on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, add 1 2-color Digimon with a blue in their color from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. Well, most of, if not all of our 2-color Digimon are going to be part blue, so this has a very high chance of success on trying to find our mid to high level Digimon because we are working with a lot of 2-color Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Veemon. So this is the starter deck version of Veemon, and this card is going to be the other dedicated digging tool to try to help find our parts and pieces. So the big difference between this and the other Veemon is just what we're searching for and the amount we're searching. So this Veemon has the on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards, so 1 less card that we're searching for, but he gets to add a Digimon with free in its type from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom, and we are also running a lot of free cards to be able to find our higher stages with. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Wormmon. So Weemon from the starter deck is still a really good card because we're trying to play and take advantage of the DNA digivolution mechanic. So what this card is doing is, yes, he can digivolve off of a blue egg, which allows us to easily run him, and his inheritable ability is really strong, where during the end of your turn, you can DNA digivolve this Digimon and your other Digimon into a Digimon from your hand by paying its DNA digivolution cost. So it's just allowing us to easily be able to hard play some cards to line up DNA digivolutions with it to be able to utilize our DNA digivolutions more efficiently than they normally would be. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Veemon. So this is the classic collection version of Veemon, and this card also has the ability to digivolve off of blue and green. So just this difference in digivolution allows us to use him regardless of color for the way this current deck is built. And on top of that, he has the native ability of jamming, so that way we could use him in combination with DemiVeemon to be able to swing with him and make his swings very safe, so that way we could then DNA digivolve him into something else and to be able to aggress with our new DNA digivolution for even more damage potential. Then on top of that, he also has a really good inheritable ability where during your turn, while this Digimon has Imperialdramon in its name or is free in its traits, then it gets the jamming ability, allowing whatever we're digivolving into to also have jamming, to not only just use in combination with the DemiVeemon egg, but because jamming is a really powerful keyword, to make it so our Digimon are almost guaranteed to live through the opponent's security. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Stingmon. So this is the starter deck version of Stingmon, and this card is really good because, again, it could digivolve off of green or blue, so that way if we really need to use him to digivolve, we're not really losing any downside because, well, he's just easy and consistent to digivolve into based on how this deck is built. Then, on top of that, we're not actually looking to always digivolve up into him because he has this nice ability where while we have a blue Digimon in play, then we could reduce the memory cost of playing this card from our hand by 1, so that way he's just an easy level 4 that we could hard play for 3 to be able to DNA digivolution with right away. That's kind of the main purpose on how we want to use this card, but if we do need to evolve up into him, then we don't really have a downside for doing so either, because he has a really good inheritable ability of when attacking, not limited to once per turn. If you have a blue Digimon in play, then you get to draw 1 card, and our blue-green Digimon are also considered as blue Digimon, so it's just an easy access at this ability based on what 2 colors are doing for the game. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Digimon. So Digimon is a really good card just because it's already fitting easily inside of our 2 color combinations that we're going to be playing with. What we're really trying to do is be able to use him to digivolve for 2 on top of a Veemon. So most of our rookies are going to be green or Veemon, allowing us to easily use this card. He is a 2-color Digimon and a free, so that way our digging tools can help find him, on top of the fact that he's actually really good at being a sticky body because of the armor release ability. So the armor release ability states that when this Digimon would be deleted, you may trash the top card of this Digimon to prevent this Digimon from being deleted. So essentially, if he were to be deleted, then we get to basically de-digivolve him to prevent him from being deleted, which is really, really good at creating a constant body on the field, because now they're going to have to get rid of this card essentially twice. And on top of that, he also has a nice digivolution ability where we get to suspend one of our opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon down, so that way we could either bypass their defenses or try to beat it up if we want to try to beat it up, and we could even use the armor release ability aggressively to trade and not really trade because we're going to have a Digimon left over at the end of the battle. So this is just an absolutely fantastic card at all of the different ways that we could use him inside of the deck. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Imperialdramon. So this is the starter deck version of Imperialdramon, and this card is really good because we're trying to take advantage of the DNA digivolution ability, which this card has. So paying 4 to digivolve off of a blue or green is rather expensive. We could do that if we want to, but we could pay 0 for utilizing the DNA digivolution ability to digivolve them on top of a level 4 blue Digimon and a level 4 green Digimon on our field. So with the DNA digivolution ability, we're essentially fusing the stack set to be able to digivolve him for 0, so we can make some very powerful plays happen because of that. Then on top of that, he has a nice when digivolving ability where if this Digimon DNA digivolved, then we get to return one of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less back to the bottom of their deck, and he even has a nice when attacking ability where when attacking once per turn, we get to unsuspend this Digimon. So that way we could try to take advantage of our two main inheritables that we want to use. Stingmon will allow us to draw multiple cards, and Veemon will make his attack safe thanks to the jamming ability. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of DemiVeemon. So DemiVeemon is a really good card because, again, we're trying to take advantage of the DNA Digivolution ability. So he has the same DNA Digivolution ability as Imperialdramon, where we could Digivolve him for 0 on top of a level 4 blue stack and a level 4 green stack. Then his when Digivolving ability allows us to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, and then if this Digimon DNA Digivolved, then that Digimon doesn't unsuspend during the opponent's unsuspend phase, stunlocking them from really trying to utilize their Digimon. And on top of that, this card does have an inheritable ability, so we could actually use him to climb our stages with, where during your turn for each of this Digimon's colors, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP, making whatever we're using on top of him a little bit stronger. Next, on to our level 6s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Imperialdramon Fighter Mode. So Imperialdramon Fighter Mode is rather expensive to Digivolve up into, just because he costs 5 to Digivolve on top of a level 5 green or a level 5 blue Digimon. But we could also utilize him alternatively to Digivolve him on top of one of our Imperialdramon Dragon modes for only 2 instead, acting as a pseudo level 7 for the deck. But what this card is doing is he has a nice when Digivolving ability to be able to return one of the opponent's Digimon with 10,000 DP or less back to their hand, adding, again, some more removal for literally doing nothing, and on top of that, he also has a nice when attacking ability where once per turn, if this Digimon has a blue Digimon in its Digivolution source, then we get to unsuspend one of our Digimon, and if this Digimon has a green Digimon in its Digivolution source, then we get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon. So this just allows us to use our Digimon more aggressively and to try to help control and mitigate the opponent's field by being able to suspend their Digimon down in case we want to beat them up, or again, bypass their defenses if they're running any. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Imperialdramon Dragon Mode. So this is the starter deck version of Imperialdramon Dragon Mode, and we're using this card mostly because he is a 2-color Digimon to fit with our 2-color synergy, on top of the fact that he's interacting with the DNA Digivolution mechanic to be able to easily line it up for more aggressive lines of play. So he is a little bit on the expensive side, having the evolution cost of Digivolving for 4 on top of a level 5 blue or green Digimon. Again, the color restrictions don't really matter based on how this deck is built, but we're trying to take advantage of his when Digivolving ability, where we could play a blue and a green Digimon that's level 4 or lower from his inheritable sources as another Digimon for free to easily set up and line up another DNA Digivolution into either our Imperialdramon or DemiVeemon. So he's just allowing us to be able to try to utilize and maximize the efficiency on our DNA Digivolutions for more aggressive lines of play, because the DNA Digivolution mechanic, the fun thing about it is the fact that it does count as a new Digimon, so any buffs or debuffs that don't really apply, and if the Digimon were suspended, then they get to unsuspend, and the Digimon can swing right away, even if you just Digivolved into it with brand new Digimon on the field. It bypasses that summoning sickness to allow our level 5s to be more aggressive with, and this is one of the easiest ways we have to be able to set up another DNA Digivolution. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Ice Ball. So Ice Ball is still just that good of a card to use at it being one of the best defensive options that we have. So it has the main ability where when they attack, they lose 2 memory until the end of their next turn. So it taxes their attacks, making it so that they don't want to attack, with the security ability of gaining 2 memory. So whether it's going to be casted from your hand to try to stop the opponent's aggro for the turn, or it's coming out of our security to try to take away some of their memory, it's just a very annoying card for the opponent to deal with. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Hammer Spark because, well, it's Hammer Spark. It's one of the best blue options that we have just because it helps gain some instant memory with the main ability of gaining 1 memory to be able to make some powerful plays with and be able to make powerful plays possible. Then its security ability is also pretty annoying, having that same ability as Ice Ball where we get to gain 2 memory, effectively taking away 2 memory from the opponent, and that could be pretty brutal, stopping some of their lines of play that they might have been thinking about otherwise. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Mega Death. So in this style of deck, Megadeth is a very easy and very powerful card to use just because we have lots of different ways to be able to meet the color requirements of needing to have a blue and a green Digimon on the field. So those 2-color Digimon do automatically count towards being able to use this card. So in this style of deck, we could use it even easier than we normally would otherwise. And what this card is doing is it allows us to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, then return one of the opponent's suspended Digimon back to their hand, basically making it an even more efficient version of Cocytus Breath with lots of different flexibility on how we could use it because of those 2 abilities. Then on top of that, it has a nice security ability where at worst it activates its main to be able to get rid of one Digimon, but it could potentially stop the opponent's aggression on one of their other Digimon and bounce the Digimon that previously attacked back to their hand. So that flexibility on how we could use this card makes it just one of the most powerful removal options that we have. And then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Davis. So Davis is going to be acting as the deck's dedicated memory fixing Tamer, so if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll always just hard set us to 3, preventing us from being choked out by the opponent and allowing us to make our plays as consistently and efficiently as we possibly can because we're basing a lot of our plays off of having that 3 memory. Then on top of that, he also has a really nice on-play ability that's helping with the overall consistency of the deck, allowing us to check the top 3 cards and add a blue and a green Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. And because of the way this deck is built, we have lots of 2-color Digimon that'll meet both requirements, so that way we could have a higher chance of adding 2 cards into our hand when this card is played, making him the best Tamer for the deck to use. And as far as the second best Tamer for the deck to use, next I'm going to be running 3 copies of Davis and Ken as the final card in the deck. So this is going to be a very powerful duo Tamer to use just because, well, it is actually counting as both colors for green and blue respectively. And he has this nice ability where at the start of our main phase, if we have a blue Digimon in play, we get to gain a memory, and if we have a green Digimon in play, then we also get to gain a memory. So it's a very easy way to gain some additional memory on top of our memory fixing Tamer, so we could potentially start our turn with 5 if not more memory, depending on how many of this card we have on the field. And then this card also has a really good secondary ability where when your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon that has 2 or more colors, then we get to suspend this Tamer to unsuspend that Digimon, so that way we could try to make some even more aggressive lines of play with. So if we wanted to, we could use this as like an example with our Ragermon, so we could swing with our jamming Veemon and then digivolve it into our Ragermon and then unsuspend the Ragermon by suspending this Tamer. That's just one example, and we could use this in combination with our level 6s to be able to make even more powerful plays with our level 6s, making this Tamer one of the best Tamers that we have access to for the deck. And then we have even more options and more cards to think about possibly using to spice up the deck depending on what you want to gain out of the deck and the types of tools you want to be using. So if you wanted to, you do have access to a couple of anti-meta floodgate type cards for both blue and green, which are really, really powerful at trying to limit some of the opponent's actions. And then we do have other Veemons that we could think about utilizing. So we do have the BT02 Veemon, the Classic Collection Veemon, to interact with the fact that we're going to be unsuspending our Digimon, and we could even think about using the All 4 Starter Deck Veemon just as another Veemon to help us draw cards when our hand count is low. We wouldn't really be looking to utilize the Warp ability, but you could if you really think about it and you want to try to line up those synergies and power plays. Then, being in the color of blue and green, we have access to the most amount of hybrids, so we have lots of different hybrids to try to take advantage of as well for even more aggressive pushes and easier cards to play and safer cards to play. And then, depending on what your higher levels are looking like, we do have lots of really strong level 4s to try to take advantage of. So, in the color combination of blue-green, we have the X-Veemon from the starter deck as another card to hard play to easily use for DNA digivolutions. And if we're trying to go into a subsplash of blue and yellow, we even have Inkilomon to help act as that same type of card to be able to hard play to DNA digivolve with right away for some very powerful benefits off of of the types of cards that we're playing with. Then if we are splashing yellow, we also have Magnamon as a really good armor Digimon to think about utilizing, just because he's already playing naturally within what the deck is trying to do and the color combinations we could possibly use. And if we want a more aggressive level 4, just to add to our overall color count, then we even have Flamedramon as another armor Digimon to possibly use for more aggressive pushes. Then if you want to double down on some of the Imperialdramon synergies, then we could also think about running the BT03 Imperialdramon, because that one attacking ability he has on his inheritable is really powerful, allowing us to multi-swing with whatever Imperialdramon we're going to be using. And we also have the Classic Collection version of Imperialdramon to support the fact that we want to be extra aggressive with and try to have our Digimon not be stopped by the opponent. Then, depending on how you build the deck, if you're going to be going a little bit more green heavy rather than blue heavy, then we even could have access to make this DemiVeemon from the Classic Collection really strong as well for the use of his abilities. But if the whole goal and idea of the deck is trying to take advantage of DNA Digivolution, then we have some other DNA Digivolution cards that we could possibly add into the deck to make it even more flexible and powerful in terms of not only the colors we could run, but the types of abilities we could use. So we could try to take advantage of Chimeramon because he could use any level 4, not just limited to green or blue level 4s. And on top of that, we also have a brand new version of Shikuamon to also use and take advantage of the fact that we're going to be already playing blue, and we could splash in yellow to help support it as well. Then if you do want to try to go more Imperialdramon focused and try to build all the way up to your level 6s and be more aggressive and powerful with your level 6s, then we have lots of different Imperialdramons we could use. So we could use both of the BT03 ones to do various powerful things with, depending on how you build and customize the deck. And we even have the Classic Collection Imperialdramon, just because he's already playing with those two color synergies and wanting to take advantage of those two color synergies. Then as far as some level 7s go, we do have access to quite a bit of level 7s, so Omnimon is going to be one of the easier ones to use from BT05 to try to use as a game finisher. We could use Susanomon because of his Rainbow Evolution ability if we really want to try to take advantage of Susanomon and be able to play a little bit of a hybrid support package. And then on top of that, we even have the brand new Imperialdramon Paladin mode that we could try to use because he's naturally fitting with what the deck wants to do and how we could possibly play the deck. Then blue and green have their own sets of very powerful options that we could think about utilizing. So we could try to use memory boosts to try to fish out our Digimon so that we could make our deck and plays more consistent with the ability to gain some extra memory later on. And we even have access to cards like Hidden Potential Discovered to be able to ignore the high cost of some of our evolutions, to be able to use those cards even easier and more efficiently with, especially since we have a card like the starter deck Imperialdramon to help separate our sources, to be easily able to get Digimon onto the field, to then use this card to easily take that Imperialdramon and go up into a level 7, and then Jogress right away with it to ignore the downsides that we had to suspend one of our Digimon. And then being in the color combinations of blue and green, we also have all of their tamers that we could even try to take advantage of. So Mimi is one of the ones to highlight because we could turbo out our raising area to make even more aggressive lines of play with. But this just shows that there's just a ton of customization and flexibility to be had in terms of deck building with all of the different color combinations that we could take advantage of thanks to two-color Digimon. And the crazy thing about all of this is this all stems from a starter deck, and it just really goes to show and highlight that starter decks are a really good entry point into the game for a lot of new players. If you're just looking to play the starter deck out of the box or just looking to upgrade it, it's just a really fun deck to be playing around with nonetheless, with lots of possibilities. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.